Last week, we got sort of to the end of the book, kind of, but there's still almost 100 pages left. No, less than 100 pages. Um, like 80 pages left. So the main plot kind of ended. We got to a somewhat satisfying resolution that involved 3 different endings. Which was, I believe, the actual Morgenstern ending, and then the ending that his father gave him, and then the ending that he thinks is the correct ending. So 3 different endings, but then there's still something like 80 pages left because we're going into Buttercup's baby, an explanation, and the actual like chapter of Buttercup's baby, which is the first chapter of the sequel, which does not actually exist because it's a fictional book. So we're gonna figure out what this is all about, because all of this is in the framing story of he found this fictional book, he's abridging it. And I shouldn't call it fictional book because in the world of the story, it's not a fictional book. It's a real book. He's abridging it and bringing in the best parts of the story as his father told it to him. Now, that's quite interesting. The edition I have doesn't have that part. Okay. Because I think Andark was also reading along with their version. And mine is published by Del Rey. And I think Andark's was published by Harcourt maybe, or one of the other publishers. So I wonder if it has to do with like who your publisher is. But I don't know. It's also, I don't know what edition. Hold on, it probably says it in the front. I think this is the 62nd publishing. Houghton. Yeah, okay, Houghton Mifflin. So, wait, Andark, does yours have... I think we talked about it, but I don't remember. Does yours have Buttercup's baby in it? Because there were a couple of differences. It does. Okay. There were a couple of differences between our versions. When it got to the section where he was giving the addresses of the publishers, they were different. And I forgot to look them up. I was gonna go to Google Maps and see if I could find it, but I forgot to do that. But yeah, so I guess I have a version of the story that is different from yours. So sorry if you can't read along. I don't think I need to recap really because it's kind of a different section, but they got to a mostly happy ending. I'm lurking while I do studio stuff. Enjoy your lurks, Truby. Buttercup's baby, an explanation. You're probably wondering why I only abridged the first chapter. The answer is simple. I was not allowed to do more. The following explanation is kind of personal, and I'm sorry for putting you through it. Some of this, more than some, a lot, was painful when it happened. Still is as I write it down for you. I don't come out all that well a lot of the time, but that can't be helped. Morgenstern was always honest with his audience. I don't think I can be any less with you. My troubles began 25 years ago with the reunion scene. You remember in my abridgment of The Princess Bride, when Buttercup and Wesley have been reunited just before the fire swamp, I stuck my 2 cents in and said I thought Morgenstern had cheated his readers by not including a reunion scene for the lovers, so I'd written my own version and send it in if you want a copy, pages 169 to 170 in this edition. My late great editor, Hiram Hayden, felt I was wrong, that if you abridge someone, you can't suddenly start using your own words. But I liked my reunion scene a lot, so to humor me, he let me stick that note in the book about sending in for it. No one, please believe this, no one thought anyone would actually request my version. But Harcourt, the original hardcover publisher, got deluged, and later Ballantine, the paperback publisher, got deluged even more. I loved that. Publishers having to spend money. My reunion scene was poised for mailing, but not one was ever sent. What follows is the explanatory letter I wrote that was mailed to the tens of thousands of people who had written in over the years asking for that scene. Dear reader, thank you for sending in, and no, this is not the reunion scene because of a certain roadblock named Kermit Shogg. As soon as bound books were ready, I got a call from my lawyer, Charlie. You may not remember, but Charlie's the one I called from California to go down in the blizzard and buy The Princess Bride from the used book dealer. Anyway, he usually begins with Talmudic humor, wisdom jokes, and only this time he just says, Bill, I think you better get down here. And before I'm even allowed a why, he adds, right away if you can. Panicked, I zoomed down, wondering who could have died. Did I flunk my tax audit? What? His secretary lets me into his office, and Charlie says, This is Mr. Shogg, Bill. And there he is, sitting in the corner, hands on his briefcase, looking exactly like an oily version of Peter Lorre. I really expected him to say, Give me the falcon, you must, or I will be forced to kill you. That's a reference to something, and I can't remember what it is. Maltese Falcon, maybe? I'm not sure, but I feel like that's a reference, and I feel like I should have known the accent, but I don't. Maltese Falcon. Okay, cool. Mr. Shogg is a lawyer, Charlie goes on. And then this next was said underlined. He represents the Morgenstern estate. Who knew? Who could have dreamed such a thing existed? An estate of a man dead at least 1 million years that no one ever heard of over here. An estate of a man dead at least 1 million years that no one ever heard of over here anyway? Perhaps you will give me the falcon now, Mr. Shogg said. That's not true. What he said was, perhaps you will like a few words with your client alone now. And Charlie nodded, and out he went. And once he was done, I said, Charlie, my God, I never figured. And he said, Did Harcourt? And I said, Not that they ever mentioned. And he said, Oosh. The grunting sound lawyers make when they know they've backed a loser. What does he want? I said. A meeting with Mr. Jovanovich, Charlie answered. It turned out that Kermit Shogg did not just want a meeting with William Jovanovich, the brilliant man who ran the firm. He also wanted amazing amounts of money, and he also wanted the unabridged, the Princess Bride version, printed with a huge first printing, 100,000, and of course, the idea of little me sending out the reunion scene died that day. But the lawsuits began. Over the years, a grand total of 13, only 11 directly concerning me. It was horrible, but the one good thing was that the copyright on Morgenstern ran out in 78. So I told everyone who sent in for the reunion scene that their names were being put on a list and kept, and once 78 rolled around, voila. But I was wrong again. Here is part of the next note I sent out to all people requesting the reunion scene. I'm really sorry about this, but you know the story that ends, disregard previous wire, letter follows. Well, you've got to disregard the business about the Morgenstern copyright running out in 78. That was definitely a boo-boo, but Mr. Shogg, being Florinese, has trouble naturally with our numbering system. The copyright runs out in 87, not 78. Worse, he died. Mr. Shogg, I mean. Don't ask how you could tell. It was easy. One morning he just stopped sweating, so there it was. What makes it worse is that the whole affair is now in the hands of his kid, named, wait for it, Mandrake Shogg. Mandrake moves with all the verve and speed of a lizard flaked out on a riverbank. The only good thing that's happened in this whole mess is I finally got a shot at reading some of Buttercup's Baby. Up at Columbia, they feel it's definitely superior to The Princess Bride in satirical content. Personally, I don't have the emotional attachment to it, but it's a hell of a story, no question. It's funny, looking back, but at the time I had really zero interest in Buttercup's Baby. Many reasons, but among them this. I was writing my own novels then. To make sense of that, I suppose I ought to tell you what I did with The Princess Bride. I know the book cover just says abridged by, and yes, I jumped from good part to good part, but it was really a good deal more than that. Morgenstern's The Princess Bride is a 1,000-page manuscript. I got it down to 300. But I didn't just cut out his satiric interludes. I made elisions constantly, and there was all kinds of stuff, some of it wonderful, I got rid of. Example, Wesley's terrible childhood and how he came to be the farm boy. Example, how the king and queen went to Miracle Max because they knew they had somehow given birth to a monster, Humperdinck, and could Max change that? Max's failure is what led to his firing, which in turn caused his crisis in confidence. His wife, Valerie, refers to it when she says to Inigo, "He is afraid he's done, that the miracles are gone from his once majestic fingers." Page 276 in this version. I felt all this, exciting and moving as a lot of it is, to be off the spine of the story. I went with true love and high adventure, and I think I was right to do that. And I think the results have proved that. Morgenstern never had any audience for his book, except in Florin, of course. I brought it to people everywhere, and with the movie, to a wider audience still. So, sure, I abridged it. But, I'm sorry, I shaped it. I also brought it to life. I don't know what you want to call that, but whatever I did, it's sure something. So, Buttercup's Baby was just not for me at that time. The workload was one thing. It would have meant thousands of hours of labor. But that was nothing compared to the constant attacks by the Shoggs. Lawsuit after awful lawsuit, and each time I had to defend myself, and to give depositions, which I frankly found hateful because they were all attacks on my honesty. I had had, then, enough of Mr. Morgenstern for a while. I didn't actually read Buttercup's Baby either. I happened to be at Columbia University one afternoon. I gave my papers to Columbia, and some Florinese kid stopped by, handed me a rough translation to glance at. The full title of the book is this: Buttercup's Baby, S. Morgenstern's glorious examination of courage matched against the death of the heart. Had a great opening page, a real shocker, but that was mostly what I remember. It was just another book to me then, you see. It had not become lodged in my heart. Yet. So, what changed things? To tell you the truth, and I might as well, my life the last dozen years has been, how can I put it? What's the reverse of giddy? Oh, I've written plenty of screenplays and some nonfiction, but I haven't written a novel. And please remember that that's painful for me, because in my heart, that's what I am, a novelist. A novelist who happens to write screenplays. I hate it when I sometimes meet people and they say, "Well, when's the next book coming out?" And I always make a smile and lie that I'm on the home stretch now. And the movies I've been involved with, except for Misery, have all brought their share of disappointment. I live alone here in New York, in a nice hotel, room service 24 hours. All that's great. But I feel sometimes that whatever I wrote once that maybe had some quality, well, maybe those days are gone. But to balance the bad, there was always my son, Jason. You all remember how when he was 10, he was this humorless blimp, this waddler. Sorry, Spexow. I already have the best viewers. Thank you anyway. Since I stopped there, I'm going to go back a little bit, where he says he's a novelist who happens to write screenplays. I was just having this conversation with my boss a couple days ago, that sounds like so much of the things that I say all the time, is like, I consider myself a retired massage therapist who just hasn't stopped working yet. And I consider myself an expat who just happens to still live in the country of my birth. The difference between reality and what my heart is telling me I am is, I feel that. I feel that whole, like, I'm a novelist. I just haven't written a novel yet. Um, there's I don't know. I relate to that really hard. Hi there. Thanks for joining our book club. If you'd like to join the conversation, I would love it if you would leave us a comment. And if you'd like to see more, check out the playlist.